Hi, I wanted to do a review on this very cool amp. This is called BP Mini, and it's made by the company called CoolMusic. And it's a battery-powered 30-watt amp intended for acoustic guitars, but as I will show you in this video, it could also be used for an electric guitar as well. So what I wanted to briefly talk about and then demonstrate are the things that I would myself wanted to know if I watched a demo video of an amp. And the things that I'm going to address are, is it really a 30-watt amp? I'm sure you're wondering about that, looking at the size. What features does it have? How long does it take to charge it? And how long does that charge last? Very important, since this is a battery-powered amp intended for, busking, playing on the street, playing where, no power outlets are available, and so on and so forth. And then most importantly, how does it sound? Does it sound good? So I would like to show you all of those things, to talk about them briefly, and then demonstrate playing a few different guitars. So let's start with that first thing that I've mentioned. Is this really a 30-watt amp? And the answer is yes. I'm sure you're wondering, looking at the size, because if you try to shop for battery-powered amps, many of them come in packages even smaller than that, but they are usually only between 3 to 5, maybe 10 watts, 15 tops. And if you know anything about playing on the street or playing, for more than a couple of people, that is definitely not enough to project. And so this is a 30-watt amp. And from my experience of being a professional guitar player for quite a while, that is definitely enough to play a solo guitar gig, as well as to play in a duo and a trio situation. Even with a drummer, as long as it's not an extremely loud drummer, as long as it's a drummer that pays attention to dynamics. And of course you would always pick, a drummer like that. You should always pick a drummer that pays attention to dynamics. So 30 watts is definitely loud enough to play out, to play on the street, to do busking, and which is, especially nowadays, is something that many musicians are considering. If they've never done it before, they consider doing it, to be able to make money. So it is definitely a 30-watt amp. Let's talk about the features. It's a 2-channel amp. Okay, it has a microphone channel. The microphone channel has volume, bass, treble, reverb, and the input could use a regular 1/4 inch or the XLR. Okay, and then there's an instrument channel, specifically a guitar channel. The guitar channel also has volume, bass, treble, chorus, and reverb. So you have, on the microphone channel, you only have a reverb. On the guitar channel, instrumental channel, you have both chorus and reverb. And again, this is intended for an acoustic guitar, but as I'll show you a little bit later, you could use it with your electric guitar, and if you're interested in playing with a chorus effect, you definitely have that option here. But the amp has a reverb, which is, to me, that's an essential thing for any amp. Now, even though it's labeled microphone and guitar, you could use 2 microphones, as long as you have a microphone that has a regular, 1/4 inch plug. You could plug it in right here, or you could use 2 instruments, like 2 guitars. Now, for singers-songwriters, for anybody who gigs and, accompanies himself or herself and then sings, all of that is available in one amp. So it's fantastic. You have 2 inputs. It's a 2-channel amp of this size right here, okay? It also has a Bluetooth connection, so you can connect your phone and play music, play tracks and play along with that. And you can also do that with singing. So that becomes almost like a 3-channel amp, if you see what I'm saying. Okay, also has here a phone input. And then here's what we have on the back. I'll show you first. And then what we got here is, we have another headphone input. We have power charge here. It's a USB-C connection, and the amp comes with the power adapter to charge the amp. There's an indicator. When you plug it in to charge, it turns red, and when it's full, the LED goes off, and that's how you know the amp has been charged. You have a DI out if you want to connect it to a PA, or you want to try to connect it to a different speaker, you can do that. And there's also an auxiliary in for you. You can put your phone through it, a wired connection. And as it says in the manual, you could also use that to charge your phone. Okay, as far as the speakers, so there are two speakers here. There's a 6.5 woofer and then a 1.5 tweeter, 6.5 inch woofer and then 1.5 inch tweeter. Let's address the charging and how long it lasts. It takes between 3 to 5 hours for a full charge. There is an indicator here on the front panel right here, on the top panel I should say, that tells you full, half, empty, so you'll always know what it is. And I currently play a gig at the Venetian Hotel in Las Vegas, where I live. I play for Gondola attraction, and we play amplified, but there's no power, so we use battery-powered amps. And so I charged this thing and I brought it to the gig. My shift is about 4.5 hours, and so this thing lasted no problem through that. So it'll give you at least that. Okay, you can definitely count on this being at least 4 hours that you can get out of this amp. You can charge it in the middle of the gig. You can bring a power bank and charge it right here. You can do that as well, but it'll last you 4 hours in my experience easily. And having an average gig being 2 to 3 hours typically, you can definitely rely on this to get you through your gig. As far as the sound is concerned, that is probably the most important thing, because a lot of amps like this, even if they have the features, they really don't sound very good. And this amp sounds very, very good. I would say that the sound is close to Roland JC, the Jazz Chorus. This is not a stereo amp, but the sound, to me, that reminds me of the Roland JC amp. It's a warm, big, clean sound. It doesn't break unless you're gonna go to the extreme, and do a full volume. And even with full volume, depending on your guitar, it doesn't really break up. But of course, if you need a distortion pedal or anything like that, you can connect it and get the distortion that way. So it's a clean amp. Again, it was intended for acoustic guitars, and acoustic guitars most of the time are clean sounding guitars. So it has a big warm sound, and that's a very good feature if you're looking for to use without any effects, which you always can. Okay, so now I think I talked enough to give you just basic features of the amp. Let's go ahead and check it out. Let's see how it sounds. Okay, so for my first example here, I'm using an acoustic electric guitar. It's an Ibanez acoustic electric guitar. I'm going through that guitar channel. I did test the microphone channel. It does work. I'm not a singer, so I'm not going to demonstrate that. I'm sure there'll be other videos for that, but it does sound absolutely fine to me. In fact, as I told you, you could plug in to that microphone channel and use your instrument as well. Okay, but here's the second channel. I'll tell you my settings. So my bass and treble are flat at noon, but of course you could use that to your liking and adjust accordingly. I like the flat EQ typically, especially if the amp is very good, which this one is. That's pretty much all you need in my experience, but that's very individual, so it might vary for you. And then I have volume only at about 10 o'clock, just to give you a reference. Okay, so it's not even half, it's less than half. And then I use, for this demo, for this guitar, I use both chorus and reverb at about 11 o'clock. very warm and deep, and that's what I was trying to describe, but you know, it's the best heard when it's actually played, you know, when you use a guitar and play it through the amp. So hopefully that answered your questions as far as the sound. So that's how the acoustic guitar will sound, the acoustic electric guitar. Alright, so for my second example now, I have an electric guitar. So this is a single coil. You can obviously recognize Fender Telecaster. And so my settings slightly changed. Well, first, I am not using the chorus for this demo. My reverb is still at 11 o'clock. My volume now is at noon, at 12 o'clock, just because it's a single coil, so it needs a little bit more power. And then my EQ is still flat, so at noon, 12 o'clock, both bass and treble. Here's how this sounds. Again, as you can hear, the sound is clean. It is very warm, deep sound. Like I said, to me, reminds me of the Roland JC. You might hear something else, but it is definitely an amp that works great for the clean sound. Alright, and so for my last example now, I have a guitar with humbuckers. This is specifically Ibanez S-Series guitar. Slightly modified with the Floyd Rose tremolo taken out, but this is a humbucker guitar, and also the pickups are pretty hot. So to avoid the distorted sound, the settings again are slightly different, and of course, again, this is just for the purpose to show you that the amp has a lot of headrooms. You can definitely use a distortion pedal or any other effects if you are looking for that type of a sound, and I, like most guitar players, also you know, play with the distortion pedal and wah pedal and whatnot. But I specifically wanted to demonstrate the clean settings because typically if the amp sounds good clean, it'll sound very good, you know, with effects as well. Okay, so also I am using here an app, so I'm going to be playing along also to show you the Bluetooth setting. So I have an app called iReal Pro for the tracks. I have a specific volume here, dedicated volume for the Bluetooth for you know, the phone, and it's about 10 o'clock, just to give you the reference. I dialed the volume slightly back to 11 o'clock because again the pickups are hot, and I also dialed slightly back the bass and the treble. So remember, I had flat settings, so now I'm on both bass and the treble. I'm at 10 o'clock, the chorus is off, and the reverb is still at 11 o'clock. Let's check it out. Okay, so that was the demonstration of the BP Mini by CoolMusic. Again, I think it's a very good amp, very reasonably priced, works for busking, works for playing in the situations where there is no power available to you, has 2 channels, has many different things that you can do to, you know, adjust your sound according to the gig, according to your preference, according to the guitar that you use. And again, this works well for microphones as well as for instruments, and specifically with guitars. It is not just for an acoustic guitar. It also works, as you saw in my demo, on electric guitars, and it is pretty loud. Thank you very much for watching.